the healing process, especially after kind of a big surgery, it takes time, right? That really probably the instrumental um, attribute I think of a healing process is patience without falling into laxity, right? That obeying fatigue, and especially if after anesthesia and stuff. But and that's something that I think I've learned a lot about from my yoga practice. And this is one of the things I hope that you start getting from your yoga practices, is that the benefits of a yoga practice are take time. Like one of the things I like to say, I think I maybe said this in class because it's one of my signposts of my practice, is that there's no such thing as a yoga prodigy, right? There's no such thing as someone that, oh, they're so good so fast at yoga. Because and that's something to be good with, like happy with, is that you can't and shouldn't be in a rush. There isn't a quick getting of what's being revealed in a yoga practice, right? And in fact, there are other times, it sounds a little bit barfy, but often the benefits of yoga are kind of like, I sometimes draw the analogy between why human beings. Have you ever? I haven't fully tried to do this, but have you ever tried to sit there and watch a plant open? Like it happens at such a slow pace that all of a sudden it's open. Like you can't really, like what happened? It's because our brains literally can't have time that slow, right? And so that's all of a sudden it's just there. And that's how a yoga practice is, and how you don't often know what's been realized until it's up, the flower is already open, and it's not as dramatic. Sometimes it is, like suddenly you can do a pose you couldn't do before, but that's really not the big benefit of a yoga practice. There's a line that from the Bhagavad Gita that I taught this course on the Bhagavad Gita. I think you heard me talking about it, but on chapter 2 of the Bhagavad Gita, and it's like take refuge in the insight that's revealed by yoga, not in the action. Action's inferior to insight. Take refuge in the insight, right? And so one of the things is that I hope that you're getting shifted by your yoga practice, right? And it's not a big dramatic thing. It's not like suddenly being able to stand on your head. It's like surely it's a form of thing in community and exercise, but then there's a settling or a patience with what reveals. And I hope that in your own yoga practice and when you come to class, that you keep fostering curiosity. Try to remain curious. I mean, you get to decide if you want yoga or asana to be just a form of exercise. That's up to you. But it's like there's to stay open and curious to what you're learning, and to not have to understand what's being revealed. And that's the beauty of coming at something over and over again, is that you can have yogic realization without understanding it. That's another big thing that I'm not as good at. I tend to mentalize everything. But if you really look at the arc of your yoga practice or any dedicated practice, it could be anything. It could be making pottery, right? Right? That what's actually being revealed and shaped is actually slower and takes more patience. But I think that that's, to me, one of the best ways that yoga is a healing art, is that it teaches you the patience that's required of healing. When you see a lot of things in the contemporary yoga landscape where they're trying to make yoga be like an intervention, and like do these series of poses and it'll do this for you, and that's such a westernization of trying to use yoga kind of as an aspirin. And the truth is that yoga can work that way. That's not false, right? But it's not been the source of my practice, right? So like for me, as you can imagine, because I've had surgery on my abdomen, so we're gonna go a little bit slow today, but I'm gonna try to like try to explain well, not explain, but share with you some things. One of the things that yoga, I don't know if you've had this experience for you, but like let me go back to the right view here. Is that I remember my yoga teacher said this to me a long time ago. She said, like, she used to use this phrase with me, like Joe used to say, there are darker places within your body, right? Now, what's interesting about what I thought that meant, I thought it meant just without awareness and, or without strength or anything. No, but there are places where your presence isn't as balanced. And so instead of thinking about, so darker places, and there's no good and bad here, like where there isn't as much light, let's say that, right? Okay, that's not, or fresh air. If you don't want to use visual, think about the feeling of fresh air coming in from outside. There are places in your body that are more, don't have as much fresh air, right? And I used to think that that just meant that there was no consciousness there or awareness there, but often the darker places are muscles that are also overused. So it's not just underused muscles, it's overused muscles, right? And that's a really important distinction. So part of what I can say is that, like, I mean, literally they moved around my innards, right? And so there's like, I'm not able to feel as much differentiation through my abdomen because it's still healing and swelling's going away and all that stuff, right? So, but this is part of what I've got to stay patient with. So instead of today's classes, I'm going to have you guys do some things that are leaning over more. I'm not as much, but I want to start with starting to bring light and awareness through the places that have been traumatized while being nonviolent. See, the easy thing to do would be a lack of patience, would be to start working too hard too fast, right? And when you're youthful, maybe you can get away with that more, right? But finally, I'm smarter, less dumb, and I don't want to rush it, right? So sit up straight and tall. And part of the way that you bring light into the darkened room or fresh air is through the sensation of allowing. So at least for me, the allowing part of centering isn't like turning on a light. Not yet. Movement and action starts to turn on the light, and breath, right? But the allowing part actually is like, you know how when you first start in darkness, if you let your eyes adjust, you can start to kind of see more. Like, as opposed to having a light come on, it's not like turning on a light, but like you kind of go into a dark room, you sit there, you wait a little bit, and then all of a sudden you can see way more than you thought. That's what's revealed by allowing what's already there, right? So you're not trying to activate too much. So just sit, and we already know that exhale is actually part of the allowing. So on these next just couple of even preparing for centering, right? Because your mind has to stop trying too hard. Remember, patience is the elixir that brings the light, right? It's not quick action, or is the precondition. So you just feel and let your exhale be felt more. And make sure, before we get too focused on it, make sure as you're listening, you're not tensing the inside of your mouth. You're not pressing your tongue against the roof of your mouth. And especially as you start to try to feel the outline of your body, right? Watch what your mouth is doing. So as you allow, and hopefully you can start to exhale in a way that drops the skin on your back body. Okay, what does that line mean? Well, I just you don't have to understand, just do it. Right? So don't just shrink. So the big collapse would not be. So when I'm actually trying to get you to start to bring structure in your exhale by dropping your back, letting your back body drop on exhale. So you're following the exhalation, but your consciousness is being slightly more aware of the back body rather than the front body. Keep the inside of the mouth soft. So there's a landing that's being initiated by being aware of a movement that can sink with the exhalation, right? Especially relax around the temples. So you can try to relax the temples by going just here, but sometimes I can really relax the temples by feeling my exhale and being more aware of the empty space right on the outside of my temples, right? And the awareness of the back of my head. So now we're trying to fill in a little bit of structure but remember, you're not trying to race your mind and judge where those places are. You're trying to allow where those places are. And especially on the exhale, feel where your feet are on the floor on your foot pedals. Now your sitting bones. All making sure that they sync with your exhale, not your inhale. So the awareness of the vessel is coming from the parasympathetic part of the nervous system, right? Not the active part. So you're watching these things on exhale. It's hard. It's going to make some of you sleepy. Now start to more engage your sitting bones. Remember, you're trying to light up through the core on each side of the spine. So head down with the sitting bones, up, through the chest. Now try to see the places. Let's say the down with the sitting bones and the up with the lower abdomen is like the beginning of a river flow up. Are there places in the stream that are darker, that aren't as felt, gaps in the awareness? That's what Joe meant. The question is, how am I going to fill in those gaps in the river? Am I going to do it through will? Well, that'd be the clumsy, like professional sports metaphor. If I try to do that with my will, that'd be like a football player. Then I'm not being patient with healing, right? So I'm just going to watch what parts of you aren't lit. What part of your chest doesn't lift as well? So you're like, but you're trying to feel it without too much judgment. There's no action yet. You're just trying to feel. Then bring your hands into prayer. If you can. If you can't, I'm not gonna, but so that'll put too much strain on me, right? So again, you're trying to feel the whole vessel. Let the back body skin drop on exhalation. Gently lift the sternum up. Sitting bones and bottoms of the feet as anchors. A movement of rising as congruent with the grounding that's pervasive. The earth is always here. So grounding sensation is pervasive to a quiet mind. The rising sensation emerges out of the pervasive grounding. Close your eyes from top to bottom if you haven't, unless you need to keep them open. Feel where the top of your head is, the outer tips of your shoulders. Go more inward towards the sitting bones and the inner edge of the heels. Observe the expansion of the rib cage on inhalation. The dropping on the back body on exhalation. Keep the outer tips outline of your body crisp while the inside grounds. Let go of your day. Prepare your mind to do yoga. Good. And then release, take your hands down, sternum up, chin down. Decide today how aggressive you should be with the sternum lift. It's going to be different every day, right? Don't always think that more awareness is less action. Raise your head up with closed eyes. Open your eyes. So ask yourself, like, if there's any kind of difference in your awareness between when you feel your sitting bones in your feet and you start the lift of the chest. Is it coming equally up through your torso? Right? Or does something activate faster on one side or the other? And if you don't have one side activate more than the other side, you are beyond human. So that would mean your psoas muscle is completely balanced, right? One of my favorite stories, I was on a panel with Richard Freeman, who's a really cool Ashtanga yoga practitioner, and we were asked if we had a favorite pose. And he said this, and he talks really like this, kind of like when he's done it, like maybe in his early days, he's like in his 60s, that maybe he's done just a little bit too much acid, right? Like he's like that kind of guy. He's fantastic. He's just great. You have to really listen to him. And he goes, for the longest time, I thought if I could just balance my psoas, it would lead to world domination. So that was me as a kid. He thought that somehow yoga was going to bring a level of enlightenment and he was going to become some sort of super being, right? If he could just balance his psoas, right? And what was great, if there's like 400 people in the crowd and everyone just thinks he's serious for a second, because world domination and yoga sound like they don't go together. And so everyone's just like frozen. And I just bust out laughing. I'm next to, because I know exactly what kind of sense of humor is. And then finally, everyone like starts laughing their ass off, right? Because at first we think everything that's uttered is supposed to be serious when you're being quieted inward, right? But so if you don't feel a disparity between how you're lifting from the sitting bones up through your lower abdomen, right? You're not correct. It's not equal, because you are not dominating the world, right? Because you have not achieved world domination, right? So to try it again and be patient, right? And for me, it's really easy to tell because of my scoliosis, right? But not easy, but that's what, so now just for a second, really try to, as anchors, use your sitting bones and each foot on the floor. Keep that as an anchor. And notice where, as you start to hit down, which side responds quicker, right? Especially if you're like right dominant, you're not ambidextrous, one side's firing faster, right? And so you're trying to like, now what would you do? Because your mind's habit is to grip asymmetrically. That's your habit, right? What are you going to do to change that habit? You're going to have to allow. Even if you don't know how to fire, for me, I always fire more on the right side of my abdomen, which is tough because that's where I have the incisions, right? And so it's like, I've got to like, I don't even quite know how to push through my left sitting bone and the inner heel as well. So my first strategy now, as I'm trying to reclaim more lightness in my torso, it's like I have to allow that. Before I can do it, I have to allow that my left sitting bone and my left heel could fire equally. I have to allow it first before I can do it. And that might take a couple of weeks, right? So try to get this awareness between heels and sitting bones as well as you're going to get it today. And then to help you guide symmetrically, symmetry is a really important part of a pose. Once you kind of get whatever you're going to get today between the sitting bones and the inner heels, right? then get an equal point between each side of the sternum, right? So you're mapping the heels to the sitting bones to the sternum. So you're providing some structure for your mind to stay within. But the structure has to be based on an allowing, because your mind is used to unconsciously pressing asymmetrically. So just try to do it as equal as you can. So you got 3 points: your heels, your sitting bones, and somewhere on each side of the sternum. Now, instead of just, I gave you the easier one, the front body, right? Pick 2 points, 2 more points between this part of your sternum and the back side of your sternum, the back body between the shoulder blades. So now you're trying to feel your feet, your sitting bones, 2 points here, 2 points on the back body. Breathe to try to bring light on both sides equally, given a structure that's coming from a patient allowing before it's an action. I know this is a challenging class. Remember, you're still expanding on the inhalation and dropping the skin down the back body on the exhalation. Keeping the whole thing connected. All the points. Is your head balanced over your neck? Uh-oh. So in this, don't overexert your structure. Let your inhalation be more like graceful, like grace, gentle. Let it bring some light. Let your exhalation reinforce the structure. Remember, the earth is a pervasive structure. Good, and then release. Now change gravity a little bit. You're gonna come forward. I'm only coming so far forward. I put my hands on a table, but you can so now you've got more action, right? Because you've changed gravity. So now hit down through your sitting bones. These are all the instructions you've had before, but maybe you can start to see why I have been giving you the instructions I give you when you try to. So as your hands are grounded, your sitting bones, your feet. Now, can you see why I've been telling you to broaden across your sacrum in this position as you lift your sternum? But now I have to encounter, as I start to activate, that I'm not as lit on the left side of my body. So I'm going to have to back up and allow prana, awareness of the place I can't quite see and control, and then touch it with my inhalation and exhalation. Good, and then release. So one of the things that I've had on my yogic journey is sometimes, depending on if I'm having a good day or a bad day often, but sometimes, and whether I'm being super self-critical or not, right? Because everyone has more self-critical days, right? If you don't admit it, you're just not being truthful. Sometimes I get overwhelmed by how much I don't know about my body, how much I can't feel. That in fact, the amount you can control in your body, the amount that's uncontrollable in your body, with your mind at least, right? And so be curious about that gap. And don't think you're supposed to fill it all in with light. Take your left hand outside your right leg. Take your other hand behind you. So again, now we're going through it, trying to make things symmetrical. So you guys, I'm not going to do it as much, but inhale, lift up, exhale, revolve. Just bring in, I'm trying to be really careful, and this helps to find the light, is to I'm just trying to gently trying to turn the direction of the water by grounding my feet and my sitting bones, turning my spine a little bit and being very patient with the sensations in my torso. Now on exhalation, I'm going to drop my shoulder blades and lift under my collarbones. Inhale, I'm going to inflate under my collarbones. But there's no winning here. There's just bringing light to stuff. Good. And then exhale and revolve back to center. And then again, find the symmetry. So hopefully the symmetry is now an imprint that's kind of behind your judging mind from taking all that time. So move from that place. Take your left arm outside your right leg. Right away, I want to find the earth on exhalation before I start the invigoration. So I'm making sure I'm getting the pervasive whole, W-H-O-L-E, and then starting to turn on exhalation, but knowing that there are places in my torso that if I try to turn too much with my sternum and my chest and my neck, that I'll be doing violence to that gentle stream near the base. That's supposed to be, this whole stream is releasing. Good, and then come on back to center. So what we're trying to do here is trying to have a practice that's dominated by nonviolence, which is a funny use of words, that's led by nonviolence, not dominated. All right, come forward again. So find that structure, the symmetrical structure. Feel your hands, feel your feet, feel your sitting bones. Feel each side of the front side of your sternum and then between each shoulder blades. Inhale, expand. Exhale, more awareness into your hands, feet, and sitting bones. Inhale, create space. Exhale, find grounding. Because the making space of the inhalation has to come off of grounding too. So inhale again from the grounding. Exhale, extend. Good. And then back up. You can kind of go off from side to side, go get kind of a little bit more fun in here, right? Less confined focus, right? Because so far the class has had a lot of confined focus, right? Right. And the focus is trying to be taught from a sensation of allowing, then go back. Forward a little, however far it feels good, right? So you're going back and forth. Now we're again creating some of that space. So the space is can be activated by movement, right? Because your muscles start firing in ways they haven't done before. So lift up, down. So what's happening is the activation of the muscles is starting to deliver your mind to different places in your body. But don't think your mind's the light. That's not the light. The light was already there, right? So you're just doing all these things, just trying to get it, so you're not melted into your chair. You're living on your chair. So inhale, lift up, exhale to the right. Come back. So now we're just doing these movements, forward, back, gentle twist, right? Forward, back, forward into a twist, gentle lift. Don't just lift with your chest. Keep the awareness lower. Keep it gentle. Come back to center. Forward, back, forward into a twist, into a gentle twist, back to center. Take a couple of breaths. Add more bone to your base. So then you come forward onto your forearms. Find a way, a position for your hands that helps you sense symmetry, right? Whether your hands are folded, whether your palms are together, you're trying to use your hands as the touch point for balance through your whole body. So like making the hands press equally. It's not just I'm worried, I don't want you to so like, and then release for a second. So here's what I mean. So if your mind is just doing the action, what I was just trying to do, you're going to get all fixed and watching to make sure each hand is pushing equally, right? Into like a symmetry, into a merging into a symmetrical line, right? But what I want is that I want when you get grounded on your forearms, I want your whole body, your whole inner body to become part of what's bringing the hands together equally. So your hands are being a microcosm of something more. So come forward. So I like this because my forearm bones are on the bones of my legs, which actually makes me feel more grounded and more akin and congruent with what I know is coming from the earth, right? And then my hands together. And I want to like not just push my hands together, but my whole inner body starts to bring my hands together, right? And then the expression through my skin on my palms and through my fingers becomes like the final 10%. So right now I'm practicing into more of a singularity and then expanding back out. So like check out what happens when you press a little bit more with the heel of your hands. Does anyone feel a change in their shoulder blades? Right? There's a real, that's why the palms of the hands are actually really, and the heel of the hands change. That's why a lot of the instructions are about the heel of the hands, right? So you're like, now have the center of your chest be connected to the expansion of your palms. So spread the palms, lift the chest. Feel your feet, your sitting bones, each side of your sternum. Breathe. Be active enough such that there's a little bit of fatigue happening in this pose. So you're not just hanging out. You're not being dull. You're being patient. You're guiding the river. And the banks get a little wary. Good, and then release. So take your right hand or left hand. I'm going to bring it down to the table, but forward, right? So, but it could be What I would want would be you to be leaning forward some if you're not using a table, right? And I'd want you to be down a little bit. So like the bone of my arm is on my knee, not my hand. My arm's not bent, it's straight, right? So I'm using bone awareness a little bit more. So I'm not trying to twist too much now. Well, I'm not. You can try to go too much if you want, right? But instead of I'm trying to now very gently feel my sitting bones and my feet connect the pressure of the wrist bone and the knee, open here across from the center of the sternum out through the right shoulder, but stay connected to the left hip. Make sure you're feeling both sides of your torso, because it's going to be easier to let go of the right side of your torso. Feel your feet, your sitting bones, and allow symmetrical awareness of each side of your torso, even though your brain is getting asymmetrical input, or your mind is for sure. Good, and then come on back to center. Like, so one of the things I've been trying to talk about over the last few months really is what it means to have what it means to have more full awareness, right? And so the mind is going to follow the more dramatic action. Okay, so that's what asana does. It starts to put you in positions where the mind's going to follow the drama, but the patience brings the rest of the body. So the mind's going to get input from the asana. The brain, or the consciousness, right, is receiving from that place that takes more patience to have. So come forward with the arm, come forward a little bit. So now I'm really trying to use the bone against the bone in my leg, right? I'm opening again across this way, right? From the center out through the left shoulder. But I can already tell I'm dropping on this side over here. So I'm going to refix that. I'm going to use the bone. Ooh, I got to be more careful on this side again. So go as far. I mean, again, we're trying to make you stay full, even as your mind is getting more access from the noise of the twist. Inhale, lift up, exhale, revolve a little bit. You're trying to keep the backs of your eyes, the softness of the inside of your mouth, being the doorway to the parts of the pose you don't feel. And what's magical is your breath can actually touch those spaces that you don't feel. Good, and then release. Remember, in order for something to become more aware, or the mind to become more aware, it has to become more conscious, has to become aware of what it's not and not shy away from it, right? So this is getting practiced in the yoga pose all the time. You're trying to bring what your mind is not into poses. All right, so come forward again. Because your mind's always going to follow what it can control, right? You very rarely find bodies that have control issues, right? It's always the mind. Body's just happening. That's why it should be one of your best teachers. It just happens. It doesn't have all that, all the complication. So again, you're feeling your hands, your sitting bones, and your feet. So when you try to lengthen your arms, right? Press down through the index mound. Lengthen the inner edge of the bicep back towards the face, right? And then don't lengthen your arms and watch what happens. And now ground your feet, feel your sitting bones. activate and lengthen your arms. Stay sturdy at the inner edge of each shoulder blade. And then release that for a second and watch how the river just turns into a pool, a puddle going in every direction, right? So now ground again, lengthen the inner edge of your arms, lift the sternum, stay connected to your sitting bones, be aware of your inner heels. You get to direct some of the river, but you don't get to control the water, right? You don't get to, at least I don't. The flow and the current already happens within the structure you provide. Good, and then release. So, asana is a structure that grabs the mind, but it's grabbing the mind so the rest of the river can come through the pose, right? And it's the rest of the river that is the insight. Take refuge in the insight, not in the action. Doesn't mean you can perfect the action and increase the amount of river that's coming through you, right? But that's not the insight. All right, so if you can come down on your elbows, right? If you're at a table, right? If you're not at a table, what I want is, again, connection on the bone near the elbow and the palms. So if you're leaning forward like I am right now, I've got the grounding and the palms, right? The problem, if you're not the problem, but the challenge here is that the people that have their elbows up on a table are getting a more direct access to the inner edge of their shoulder blades, right? So if you're down forward like this, you need to find the inner edge of your shoulder blades on your own. Here, when you're on the table, there's more drama, right? So your mind can find it faster. Okay, both are worth doing, right? So you're trying to find, again, that core channel. So an un-yogic inhalation is a loss of opportunity, right? So normal breathing here, there's nothing wrong with that, but you're in this position creating more grounding so you can maximize what you're given. So if you keep your consciousness in your feet and sitting bones, prana will follow your consciousness more than your breath. So you are being present, and the breath brings the river better. Inhale and exhalation. Remember, prana, there's non-breathing parts of prana. So the retention of your breath is as important as the inhalation and exhalation. So you're feeling your breath, the expansion of the inhalation, but you're grounding your sitting bones and feet. The bottom of the exhalation, you know you're still breathing. Good, and then back up. So for those of you that were able to use the table, now I want and I wasn't using the table there because I was with the other people that didn't have a table, right? I want everyone to do it this way now, right? But before you do, I want you to notice, somehow I meant that, I'm sure. So lean back in your chair, put your hands, together here, and notice the difference that gravity makes in your breath. So when you're behind the balance point, your inhalation will be more labored, right? It won't be, right? So now come forward and realize what you gained in terms of earth, okay? Back up again and know that, like, for me, if I try to take a really deep breath back here, it's going to be more strain. It's going to be more subtle violence, right? If I come forward, right, the riverbanks become more sturdy, right? So you're forward, grounding your forearms against your thighs. For me, that I always say inner heel because it makes me find the bones of my heels. But the inner heel makes me feel the midline of my spine up through my thighs. So that instruction does something different. Don't throw it away. Patience. Right? So you're forward. Before you start the next inhalation, or after I'm done talking, again, prana follows conscious more than it follows breath. So be in your sitting bones. Be in each inner heel, each side of your chest. Again, connect by allowing the space in the center of the chest to be connected to the connection between the palms. Okay? So from that pause, start the grounding that's in the pause. Start the inhalation. And then on exhalation, see if there isn't quite a very gentle increase in the pressure between your palms. As the pressure between the palms changes, drop the shoulder blades and the skin on the back body. Lift the sternum slightly. So now, because I've lifted the sternum slightly and dropped the back body, my inhalation fills more of the vessel. The exhalation brings me back towards the midline, the pressure between the palms. Feel connected, the heels on the floor, the forearms against the bones of the thigh, the lift in the chest, guiding the river, the inhalation, the pause, the exhalation, the pause within the structure of asana. Good, and then back up. Now again, because I like to say the mind is always last to the party, right? It's the denser of the parts of the consciousness, although it creates possibility. I always like to teach myself through contrast, right? So now lean back in your chair. Like, so you're tipping back. And notice that the focus, because there is a change of gravity and you're kind of falling backwards, there's no way to include your bones in this type of breath. Well, it's harder to do. Come forward again and watch you come into more grounding. So it's not just your feet and sitting bones in each side of your chest. Also connect your palms are together or whatever they're doing, right? The bones in your fingers, the bones, the heel of your hands, the mounds of the fingers. Connect the bones, lift the chest. Ground the sitting bones. Gently spread across the sacrum and inhale. Exhale and lengthen. Soften the jaw, the inside of the mouth, the skin on the temples. Structure, exertion, allowing, and receptivity. All for your breath. Good, and then release. Practice symmetry. Preparing for Shavasana. So I'm just putting my hands on each thigh and balancing my head over my neck, feeling my sitting bones, my feet. Take an imprint of your torso. Try to make the river flow equally on each side of your torso as you ground, sitting bones ground, and each side of your chest lifts. Soften the jaw, the inside of the mouth. Don't fall back into your back body. Keep your spine alert. So this isn't Shavasana, this is preparation. Alertness is at the core of Shavasana. Good, and then release and get yourself into a comfortable position. So how your hands are going to be, if you're going to lean forward. Soften around the temples, the jaw, the inside of your mouth. Maybe it's sunny where I am. It's sunny where you are. So let the sunlight in. As you descend into Shavasana. Feel your breath. Don't change it. Thank your body. Think it again. Start to bring yourself back. Slightly deeper inhalation. Slightly longer exhalation. When you're ready, open your eyes. And if it's too sharp, close them again. You get to choose the rate of light. Open it again. Open your eyes again when you're ready. Right. For me, maybe not for you. I know that class was hard, maybe, but like it was pretty deep for me. And this is a funny thing. Any of you that had surgery, like right now, I have a bad taste in my mouth. Like literally, it's the anesthesia. I can feel it, right? And that means for me, that practice was detoxing because I got stuff through my torso. Having anesthesia just makes it more evident. When you really activate through your torso without violence, your body will release what it needs to release, right? And that's like one of those great things about making sure that there's as much light, but light that's coming from the darkness of surrender is part of your light, part of your awareness, right? All right, everybody, have a good day. Namaste. Spirit in me bows to the spirit in you.